Welcome to the Newswire with me, your host, Tyler Dickerhoof. Today, we're talking about America. We're talking about a tragedy in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, right down the road from myself. Alex, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Just excited to share some news and information and some knowledge.
All right, well, let's get into it. First and foremost, with the lead shooting over the weekend, yesterday, developed in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. There was a brush fire set. Ended up, the name was just released. Wes Rowley was a individual actor who set a brush fire and then proceeded to snipe off, shooting three firefighters, killing two. The last I saw, I'm not sure if the
Critical
last
condition
injured
still.
is still in critical condition. Here's the interesting piece that, as we're seeing this type of domestic terrorism, whether it is, I remember back, it was, maybe 15, 20 years ago, maybe not quite that long, where there was two individuals. I think it was a older gentleman. I don't think it was his son, who sat up on bridges in Maryland and was shooting passerbys.
In the car, like hiding in the car.
Yep.
Yeah,
We've seen
I remember
elements
that story.
of this. I will call it domestic terrorism that's happened over the years. Maybe this is the latest, without any evidence of motive as of yet, as they've released. Here's my take on it: it's awing. It is, more hitting when it is close to home. Obviously, less than 35 miles from where I live. I feel for the firefighters that were shot. Obviously, the outpouring of support, though, in pretty quick manner, I think was just goes to show the solidarity in communities that support their first responders. There was a report that this came from the sheriff's office, there was over 300 municipalities, different organizations that sent people in short order, within few hours, to support those coming from Montana, which is about an hour's drive from Coeur d'Alene, obviously a lot from Eastern Washington. The amount of support quickly, I think, goes to show that, whether it is the heightened state of where we're at with so many protests and so much else, to me, that was endearing.
Yeah. And again, the suspect, or the gentleman, the young guy that did this atrocity, was young, 20 years old. I don't know, and authorities are still investigating what was the motive, because it just seems totally random to start a fire and then bring in the firemen and then proceed to snipe them, and either take his own life, or they're not sure yet how he was killed, whether it was by law enforcement or he took his own life. It's just such a young person and very tragic. It must be shocking, being in that area. And I don't know if
it's
this is a first of
shocking
its kind.
because, if we look at it, Idaho probably is known as one of the more conservative states in the country. Coeur d'Alene itself is a popular destination for so many celebrities, so many high net worth former athletes. There's a private community there where it's a lot of them, from the Kardashians to John Elway to Wayne Gretzky. You go down the list, people that have homes in that area. And it is a very conservative. Now, granted, North Idaho, that was, where a lot of the militia-driven mid-'80s, early '90s uprisings, Ruby Ridge, that's where it occurred. Again, there's very much that bastion of conservatism in that area. Now, that doesn't preclude anywhere from having domestic terrorism, but it is very strange why this would, become an act. And here's what I know you and I can't possibly understand, is why someone would want to do something like this, hurt firefighters, first responders, put their life into danger. It is quite shocking, and especially someone young. Again, time will tell, and maybe we'll know, maybe we won't know. But I think what, again, I noted, and the amount of quick response as far as support from all the different agencies, but then quickly mobilized. And the closest medical examiner is in Spokane, which is, again, about a 30-mile drive. And last night, the procession of the fallen firefighters, there was a miles long, there's videos of it, miles long, making the drive of, hundreds of different responders traveling with them. Man, that show of solidarity in our world, in this country, I think is to me heartwarming. Yeah. And, this is on the heels of, we have July 4th coming this Friday, a celebration of the independence of this country from England. And one thing that you shared with me, and this has come out I think this was came out this morning. A new Gallup poll where 36% of Democrats, as it says, say they are extremely or very proud to be an American. Only 36%.
What a low number.
So to some historical context is, this chart, maybe we'll get it embedded into the video here. Yeah. But Republicans in this same manner at 92%, independents 53%, and Democrats 36%. A fall from 62% proud to be an American at the last polling, which was just a pre-election. Here's what bothers me. As I look at this chart, again, I'm looking at this chart. You can go to AP News. You can find this, is that since the start of this chart, 2001, the Republicans have had a high of 99, a low of 84. That is percent that are extremely or very proud to be an American. Okay. Yeah. If you live here, I would hope that. Conversely, from that same period, 2001, 9/11, the Democrats were right there in that same 90% upper plus. 80s, not quite 90%. A low of 42% came during 2020. And now, again, 36%. And it has been dwindling since 2013. 2013, it was in the mid 80s and kind of bounced between the upper 70s, mid 80s. Here's what's shocking to me is, why is there such a long-term disparity between the two parties?
It's crazy.
Here's the other piece of that. Let me interject this. Yeah. Just as we can understand, since 2008, that's when President Barack Obama was elected president. Since 2008, all but 4 years have been held by Democratic presidents. And even during the, you could say there was a precipitous drop with Trump coming into office 2016 to a low of 42% of Democrats proud to be Americans. This is shocking, not necessarily shocking to me, but it also coincides with one of the latest reports of the mental health difference between Republicans and Democrats. And again, not to make this partisan, but it is what it is. And looking at it, that the amount of Republicans that are of good mental health is, and I don't have the exact numbers, extremely to the high, whereas Democrats with low mental health to the low. Here's what I wonder. It's just speculation. Is some of this disdain wrongly put into politicians' hands as opposed to, other factors? Well, it's something I just contemplate and wonder here.
What's shocking to me is you have 9/11, right? So you have the highest point of patriotism and pridefulness in being an American, right? Which makes total sense. It was a devastating event. I remember it well. I remember exactly where I was, everything that happened that day. And you had a good 2 years where I would say Republicans and Democrats shared 88+% in being proud to be American. Basically, you could say, Tyler, almost back till 2004, there was a continuous, with a slight increase throughout that period on the Democratic side, increase in patriotism, but it never crossed that 85% mark. And then it continued to decline all the way to 42%, and now at an all-time low of 36%. But when you look at, and this is, I'm not making this up out of thin air. This is a Gallup poll on AP News. You can go right now, apnews.com, and just search American National Pride poll. And the Republican is pretty consistent. It's basically almost always above 90, other than in the year from basically 2000. Was that 20, the COVID year, uh, till about 2022. It dipped to its lowest, right around 84% in patriotism, but always above, well above 80%. And now it's dipping back up to 92%. And that disparity in like just being proud to be an American, grateful to be in this country, is shocking to me that you vote for these presidents who many of them were democratically elected and
or local leaders, because you got to remember,
right.
you know, there's a spillover from local to national, and it's also, um, I think you look at some of the local, and again, some of these areas that are either long Republican held, long Democrat held, and you see more signs of patriotism in the more longer held Republican, the quote unquote red states. You see maybe less of it in blue states. We just bring up the disparity between Idaho and Washington. It would be nothing to go out on the lake in Idaho that we go to and see boats littered. Like this weekend, there will be American flags on every single boat, proudly displaying that flag. If you were to go to some of the east or the western Washington, those lakes, I would wonder, are you going to see that display? I'm guessing not
But
at
when
all.
Tyler,
That's a guess.
when did when did the American flag be a signal of the left of Democratic Party to be unpatriotic or whatever? I just, it doesn't make sense. An American flag is the country we live in, that we celebrate and so grateful to live
Here's
in.
something I was
I
thinking
don't
about the other
understand
day.
why they wouldn't show the flag.
Well,
What does that have to do with anything political?
here's something I was thinking the other day, and I think it was maybe working out. I was rolling on my foam roller, and I look up behind me, and behind me I have an Ohio State flag. Okay, I'm from Ohio. I am a Buckeye. I live in the state of Washington. I am a Buckeye though, and I stopped and thought about that. Is we see that state to state. You're from New Jersey. You live in Florida. Would you say that you're proud of being from New Jersey?
Yeah, I loved
Okay.
growing up in New Jersey. Yeah.
Okay. So I look at that the same as, like, you can have pride if you grew up in Mexico, and you can have pride of being Mexican, of having that heritage. But then do you live in Florida for a reason? Like, you could live there. You live in Florida. Or do you identify as I'm a Floridian?
Um, I mean, I am a Floridian, but yeah, I guess more of my pride is like I grew up in New Jersey, and I'm more of a northeastern guy at
Yeah.
heart.
Okay. So that's where I look at this kind of like, okay, that is, I think that's kind of like a similar kind of like, we can use that as an analogy to this, patriotism. Okay.
Yeah.
But then when you stop and think of it, it's like, okay, I am a Buckeye, but I'm an American. I am from Washington, but I'm an American. I'm from Florida, but I'm an American. And you start to see this tension
Correct. Yeah.
in the different people. And one of the things that I've heard from different parties is, because of our lack of, I would say, adversity when it comes to, being challenged from the outside, whether we go back to 9/11, some of these places, is that there's become this almost dumping ground on being a Democrat, to say that that means we have to be not proud of what we are in order to, gain community. Like, it almost became in vogue by Democrats is, don't be patriotic, as by this graphical depiction falling from the mid 80s in, 2013, the fifth year of Barack Obama's presidency, it was 85% proud to be an American. By 2015, 80%. By the time that Trump got elected on this chart, it says that, we were somewhere in the 70s from Democrats proud to be an American. And I look at that to say, at the same point, we haven't seen that ebb and flow nearly as much Republicans. Now, here's something, again, I referenced it a little bit ago, and this comes out 2 years ago. Columbia University has a research study why depression rates are higher among liberals. And, it goes into making a few points where they say it happens to do with Trump being president, the U.S. Supreme Court's their decisions, rising socioeconomic inequality, and worsening political polarization. Here's where I look at that. I don't have the answers to this. I don't know.
Right.
But who's pulling farther away? Who's creating more of a pull? Is it the Republicans? By this chart, man, they're really proud to be an Americans.
Right.
And you have the Democrats, by virtue of this, that are pulling farther and farther and farther and saying we're less proud. I look at this to say, how's that helping anyone? Because I really wonder, and I question this, if more Democrats were proud to be Americans, would they be more willing to find common ground? I look at this, I'm not saying Republican leaders are right. I'm not saying Democrat leaders, but I just look at the overall community saying if 92% of Republicans are proud to be an American, I think they're probably going to act in a way, and this is a great assumption, act in a way to preserve American culture. Whereas Democrats, they're saying that 36% are being proud, I'm going to say by that there's 64% that aren't proud, that are doing things to almost undermine the entire American culture.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we can kind of go, a little speculative.
Hey, Alex, we can't hear anything you're saying. Now we can hear you. Couldn't hear any of that.
Oh my God. Sorry, I think I was getting a phone call.
You were.
That was fine. So what I was saying is that the biggest thing for me one of the biggest things for me was that the Democratic side by generation got significantly more or less patriotic through generations. So the younger the people, the less patriotic they got, specifically on the Democratic side. Where on the Republican side, it was consistently through generations almost equal. Why is that? Why that as the younger Democratic generations got less and less patriotic, specifically on that side? Is it, and I was saying, is it because of mental health? Is it because of the leadership? Is it because of education? Like, why specifically on the Democratic side, younger people, the younger you get, there's a less sense of patriotism? That's
Here's what's interesting is I think you can, again, well, let's look at our leadership in regards to presidential and through different representative groups. Not equally in all states, but across the nation, it's been pretty even as far as the years of rule, if that makes sense. Meaning we've had just as many years of Democrats being in control as Republicans in control. Some states have been different. I know, you go to some of the a couple of the Northeast New England states, you look across the West Coast, which has been overwhelmingly long tenured Democrat leadership. And I wonder if, there's this continual if you're frustrated, where that breeds greater frustration. It's kind of like if you have a victim mindset,
And right.
you're going to continue to breed a victim mindset, as opposed to if you have a champion's mindset, you will continue to breed a champion's mindset. And I look at that as what is the disparity? And they don't have great identification other than the by generation, the difference. And it seemingly is in vogue. If you're part of the Democratic Party, man, it is bad to be a proponent of America. And here's one of the things that I don't know, you hear this in different areas, that the grass grows where you water it. The grass grows where you fertilize it. And by the virtue of this, again, me not stating it, it's saying by the virtue of this poll that Republicans are watering their grass and they're fertilizing their lawn. And Democrats, by virtue of being upset and not happy with it, are looking somewhere else has it better. Somewhere else has it better. Someone else has it better. And it's like, well, do they? Or are we just not where you're at, watering the grass, fertilizing? And is that more of an indicator of this great difference in your happiness? And going back to the different polls in regards to political happiness as a chart, it is as dramatically different as this patriotism is the mental health by the parties.
Well, a perfect example of this, just thinking about it right now, is on The View. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was on The View about a week or two ago, but this is great because you would think they would all share maybe similar ideology, thought process, but clearly they didn't. It's like you said, how your perspective of how you view things. When grilled and questioned, they asked
Why don't you just put on Do
Arnold
Not Disturb,
Schwarzenegger on The
Alex?
View.
Alex, if you put on Do Not Disturb, maybe that'll stop that. Just swipe down from the top.
Yeah, I just hit it. And so they asked him about the ICE raids, and all Arnold responded basically was about how great America was for him, how the experience was just the only country in the world where you can come and you make it however you decide based on your work ethic, what you put in, where you water everything you're talking about. And all the women on The View are like shocked by his response because they thought he would complain and whine and say this is unfair. Meanwhile, all the women on The View are all multimillionaires who have only but thrived by being in America because of all the opportunities that are here. And this is like that again, I think that seed of complaining and whining and the grass is greener and this is wrong and that is wrong, and that gets sowed into generation after generation after generation. I mean, that's at least my thought.
Yeah, it's the mental health graphics that came out a week or so ago. Anecdotally, you can say, yeah, more of the Republicans I know are at least happy. The more of the Democrats that I know, they're more, glass is half empty and everything is horrible. And, however you want to describe it, I think with this one coming out in regards to pride of an American, and it really goes to show some of these most recent protests that, people being attacked for presenting the American flag, to almost be in vogue to burn the flag. I remember growing up, like early mid 80s, man, if someone were to burn the American flag, it was like a major deal. Like, how, whoa. And now it's kind of like, whatever, go do you. And instead of like, that is such an offense to the country.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing that is, again, thinking about some of this. We've seen over the last couple of days, I've seen a couple of clips where there's certain European countries that are limiting immigration by ethnic, I would say,
ethnicity.
Well, by ethnic origin.
Okay.
So depending what country, what race, what belief, and you have certain European countries, Denmark, Poland, that are absolutely limiting and, not allowing Muslims into their country. That's plain and simple what they are doing. And, there's the ire of so many people. How dare they do that? It's like, well, while we may not agree with it as Americans, they're kind of allowed to. I mean, here's what people don't realize, that, the ability to freely go throughout the world is a freedom that we assume in the United States that is not in every other country, by not even close. And there's this presumption that I can just come and go wherever I want because our world has become so flat with technology.
Right.
And that's not the reality in the world at all. Like, we have a friend a couple years ago. It was, I think the World Cup was in Australia, Women's World Cup, Australia, New Zealand. And they went to go to watch games. And four individuals in the family. One of the individuals, for whatever reason, the mom, did not have a visa to enter the country of New Zealand. She was just going to be there for a couple days to watch some soccer matches. Couldn't enter the country. She'd go to Australia, watch the games there, matches there, because they were going to do both. Could not go to New Zealand. And, I think for people to stop and hear that, it's like, oh, like, you can come and go wherever you want. If I wanted to go to, Canada tomorrow, they can't stop me. And it's like, yeah, they can't. Like, I have a friend who's not allowed into Canada. He's not allowed into Canada. Why? Because he got a DUI 24 years ago. Can't go to Canada. It's not allowed.
The freedom to allow people here in America to really
legally, like, both of these individuals had the legal right. One of them lost his legal right because of his DUI and subsequent, however that else transpired. One of them did not have the legal right because not something, that's the world.
You have kids in the high school age and graduating, going into college. That demographic, that age group, do you have a sense of where they're at with being American and kind of thinking about it?
Here's what's interesting is it's a great question. For example, my daughter's boyfriend is Canadian. And so just kind of like understanding what that means one way or the other. And it's almost like you can appreciate being an American, but there's not necessarily a pride in it. And I think it comes back to the, everything is equal. It goes back to, we view the states in the United States. Coming back, I'm from Ohio. I'm proud to be a Buckeye. I haven't lived in the state of Ohio since I was 18 for longer than a month, but I'm a Buckeye. But yet I haven't chosen to live there because it wasn't the place that I chose to, live my adult life from a career perspective. There were opportunities in other states. Still proud. I think that's where we're sitting, today in the world. I'm proud to be an American, but man, I could go live in Italy for the opportunities there. And I think that's probably what has degraded some of our patriotism is, to live in Italy and to live in Florence on top of a rooftop and just the historic city. Oh, that seems amazing. Well, is it? Or are you going to give up a lot of the freedoms where I can live on 10 acres? I can have animals. I can, drive a vehicle of my choice. Like, you give up a lot of those things going to other places of the world. Like, we don't have the freedom to, when you live in other places. And so I think it's the same. And now as I look at a younger generation, because the world is so flat through social media, that maybe that has driven some of the, I would say the rather, kind of irrelevant patriotism. And so when I think of my kids, do I think of them as extremely patriotic? No, not really. But I don't view them as not.
Right.
I wouldn't go to them and say, hey, are you proud to be an American? And expect them to be like, no, this country sucks. No, they'd be like, yeah, but I don't think they would go like, I'm an American and that's awesome.
Right. I hear you. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
And I think part of it is again, let's dip into this and potentially why the independents and the Democrats have such a lower view of being American. I think this was driven much through the precipitous drop for Democrats during the Trump first administration is Trump wanted to bring back a lot of patriotism.
Yeah.
He just put 2 big flags on his own dollar at the White House.
Yeah.
He didn't put Donald Trump flags. He put American flags.
Yeah.
Like, stop and think about that. He has proudly, in so many different ways, put up the American flag. You know, fly the American. All of his events are American flags. They're not Donald Trump flags. They're American flags. All right. And so much through this positioning the last 10 years has been, if
Make America great again.
yeah, but
America.
it's almost the antithesis of this staunch Republican capitalistic is to be anti-American, because the greatest signifier of being a proud Republican is brandishing your American flag.
Right.
And so it's almost like the antithesis of that is to not the Antifas, the different no kings, all of those, like, oh, if the American flag represents the Republicans, not as us as a country, the way to go against that is to stomp on the American flag, because I don't think there is Democrat leadership. You know, just think of Nancy Pelosi came out and said, I'm going to fly the American flag. Great. You can disagree with me politically, but we're all Americans, and we have the right to do that. And I don't think we've seen the Democrat leaders proudly display being an American.
For years.
Yeah, no. I mean, even Obama to, Biden to the last, it was almost, again, they bought into this, is if they proudly, present an American flag, they are, almost pining for the things that they disagree with, as opposed to, no, like, being an American allows you to have a difference of opinion and to voice that and uphold it. And that's what the true American values, as opposed to saying, I want to degrade American values and make something different. It's like, what different do you want to make? Well, I don't know. I just want it to be different. Well, and I think that's where maybe some of the subterfuge is.
I think so. You know what would be the smartest thing? Someone from the Democratic Party was just take a page out of Donald Trump's book, and I think get really patriotic and focus on Americans and American citizens and making this country a great place, which it is. Like that whole kind of mantra and mentality, I bet they would do really well.
But I
because you
think
haven't
that's
seen
what's
that.
hard is, well, but when you stop and think about the, I think that's what's so hard. And again, because Donald Trump wasn't a politician de facto, he wasn't a career politician when he ran for president. I think that's where there's so much ire in the Democratic Party, is like, oh, if I agree with them at all and be patriotic, then I'm, it's this visceral, I can't agree with you, even if we agree, because I have to be in disagreement with you, because I'm told to be in disagreement, or I'm led to believe to be in disagreement, as opposed to, let's make America great. What do you think makes America great? I think capitalism. Well, I think it's more of social, equality. Okay. But the fact that we can have that discussion as Americans is very American. Okay, well, let's be proud of that, as opposed to, I believe in capitalism and this upward mobility, the things that, Arnold Schwarzenegger just was so proud to be American. What was allowed to him is now identified as being Republican values. So therefore, Democrats have to completely disagree with that. And it's really why I think you look at the mayoral primary the primary in New York, where the real drive for the Democratic Party and kind of their calling card is socialism. And that was first and foremost kind of presented in New York, said, like, we need to be more socialistic. And I think, if you've seen, again, I don't want to put words into it, but the Democratic Party over the last, I would say 15 to 20 years has been very much driven by socialism and socialistic values. And I think that's where we probably see they no longer agree with American, quote unquote, constitutional values. It's more of, we want more socialism.
And I do think it's either subconscious or conscious brainwashing, where you identify President Trump as evil, right? This man
Well, he's
is
the
not good,
epitome of
right?
capitalism, right?
Right.
That's what
And then
people
but
know.
all
He's the epitome of capitalism.
right, and then all you see next to him is the red American flag, or a red America, and American flags by him. And you put those two images together for years on years, saying this man is bad. This, I think it's almost subconscious that
Yeah.
they like tied those two things together somehow to say he's representing something very negative, which coincides with being the American
Well,
flag and America, and somehow
here's again,
it's
this is
just
just, we're having a good conversation of
yeah.
speculation. I think if you look at, again, this is political attacks. It's no different that Republicans attack Democrats, or Democrats
Yeah,
attack
they
Republicans.
both
It's
do
all,
it.
yeah. And you go back and think, all right, because Donald Trump didn't have a quote unquote political career, it was, you couldn't stand there and attack him because, oh, he's been a hardcore Republican. He stood up for, all these different Republican programs. They didn't have the opportunity to do that because, quite honestly, a handful of years before running as a Republican, he identified as a Democrat.
Right.
So we can't really attack our own for being our own values. And it's like, oh, we didn't even see the fact that he stayed the same and our party completely moved. I mean, I would contend, again, I've said this for a handful of years, if Bill Clinton's policies were in place today, he would probably be even more conservative than Donald Trump. It is what it is. I'll move on.
It is what it is.
But I think kind of the attack on Trump had to become his personal ideology, his business, capitalism. That became the attack, which therefore became the ire of what America stands for, because that's what people had to go against. And the reality is, like, yeah, the dude is a little, I think he's more funny now than ever. And I think he's realized that. He just, again, we've talked about this before. He's a New Yorker who just bathes in sarcasm. And he can also see the hypocrisy. Again, this is my perspective. He sees the hypocrisy and goes right into it. He doesn't avoid it for political favor. He goes right into it. And just like, you want to get muddy, I'll get muddy with you. And, it is what it is. I mean, it just, okay. As opposed to, we've seen so many politicians who were just afraid to take a stand, and they want to be everyone's friend. And you're like, oh, that's not helping us.
Yeah.
So I look at this kind of disparity between the parties in, again, identifying it back to, all right, what has been sewn into, oh, if you agree with, the flag and capitalism, well, you're a MAGA supporter. It's like, no, I'm more moderate, but I can appreciate what they are, as
Right.
opposed to, one way or the other.
Yeah, it's like it's one size fits all, right? It's just an absolute. Like, I hate working in absolutes, right? If you have the American flag on your lawn, or on a sticker on your bumper sticker, you are this.
Then you
And it's
are
like,
a racist,
right,
whatever,
and it's like,
all these other, as opposed to, no, I have an American flag on because I'm proud to be an American, and I'm again, but that doesn't mean that I sit here and I feel like I need to puff my chest and show, beat my chest like and say how tough I am, and brandish all my weapons, and like, no, but I can sure be proud to be an American.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And proud to, be a gun owner that applies the Second Amendment, but doesn't mean I need to be, brandishing it just to show how tough I am. No, that
Let me
isn't
ask.
the identity of, someone who's proud to be an American.
Yeah,
Could they?
I agree.
Sure. Do they have the right to do it? Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Do they get to if their state allows fireworks to get set off this weekend? Go do it and have fun and enjoy it, as opposed to, and this is what it could turn into, because I've seen this, all the protests that are set for July 4th. It's like, are you forgetting what this day is about? It's not about publicizing internal conflict. It's saying, wow, look at what this that happened were a lot.
250 years ago. I think it's 250. I think this is the
No,
250th
next year's
anniversary.
250.
Is next year?
1776, man.
Oh, okay.
26.
Got it.
You got a big party? Are you going to plan a big party for next year?
Maybe. I think maybe if we move back to New
America.
Jersey, we'll throw a big barbecue and by the pool.
There you go. All right. Awesome. Well, as we wrap up, Alex, here's a question I have for you. When you stop and think about this chart and/or the ability for you to walk around in your community, put flags in your yard, and to wear some type of American garb, like whether that's a flag shirt, anything, does that turn you off? Or you're like, yeah, I'd do that for sure.
In Florida where I live now, I would totally feel comfortable doing that. But we regionally, maybe if I move back to New Jersey, I probably where I grew up, I'd probably still feel comfortable. But maybe in like New York City, which is only about a 45-minute drive, I'd probably, if I wore a button-up shirt that had the American flag on it, right, similar to this, but just American print,
Yeah.
I'd probably not do it in New York City because of just being fearful for people hurting me, and I have young kids,
What
and
about
I
in
don't want to
California?
put same. I wouldn't feel comfortable just because I don't want the attention, and I want to keep my family safe, and I'd feel like a target. That's how I'd feel,
Yeah.
truthfully.
What's interesting about that is, it was. I think about our boat where we go to the lake, which is just 30 miles away, is in Idaho, and again, standard. Everyone flies flags. Driving around Spokane, which is in Eastern Washington, you see less of that. And it was funny. My neighbor the other day had a landscaper come out, and the name of it, Martinez Brothers. Great, whatever, no big deal. And on the side of their truck, they had mounted an American flag. It was like, great. And I stopped and thought about that. It's like, all right, man, the amount of pride that it takes to be an American, to put a flag on your vehicle as part of your business, it shouldn't be, I don't know if I should do it or not.
Right.
And that's really what I think is, where's that coming from? And I think those are questions for all of us to ask, is if we're concerned about displaying an American flag as Americans, as American citizens, and maybe a lot of people is like, well, maybe I don't like what America stands for. Fair. But what does America stand for? Because I think that's the questions, and it's real hard to say, well, I don't like what it stands for. But the fact that I get to voice that openly, that says a lot.
In a lot of places, you can't have conversations like we have each week.
No, not at all. Not at all. And we had places in America where a few years ago, it wasn't easy to have these conversations. And now it's more open because there's less of that. And you wonder, oh, how did that come about? You have guys like Elon who said, no, like even during like I remember the Iran conflict just a few days ago. And I was scrolling through X and trying to figure out what's going on. And there are Iranians that are death to America, and we're coming after you, and you guys are horrendous. And like, that's strolling across X.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. You can't be all in and not be all in. As my college professor, my advisor told me, you're either pregnant in life or you're not. And on that note, thanks for being here. Have a wonderful holiday week. Whatever you're doing with your family, make sure you enjoy it. You do the best. Stay safe. Don't hold on to any fireworks. It is not a good thing. And make sure if you do partake in fireworks that you're watch fire safety, all those safety. Keep your eyes covered. No one wants to lose an eye. Thanks for being here. Until next time, choose to lead with impact.